at Delta, if you're receiving disability pay, there is an earned income offset. And what this means is if you receive employment income outside of Delta in the first 36 months of being on disability benefits, if that employment income exceeds what your disability payment was calculated to be, then Delta is going to reduce your disability payment. The way I'm reading that, though, is you can earn up to what your disability calculation is without receiving a reduction in benefits. And the other thing is if you get into a position where you lose your medical for more than 36 months, after that, then you can earn as much as you want and you'd still receive your 50% of your final average earnings there.
You're listening to The Pilot's Portfolio, the show dedicated to guiding professional pilots towards a future of financial success and stability. Fly along with your host, Timothy P. Pope, as he provides financial planning insights and answers to your burning questions and dives into real-life stories from fellow pilots who share their successes and cautionary tales. The Pilot's Portfolio takes off now.
Well, folks, welcome to another episode of The Pilot's Portfolio. Glad you are here. In this episode, we are talking about all things disability. For Delta Airlines, a few episodes ago, we released the disability episode related to American Airlines. Today, we're covering Delta, and in a few episodes, we'll do Southwest and then followed up by United. So glad you are here. If you're a Delta pilot wanting to learn more about your disability episodes, stay around. If you are not yet at a major airline and you are listening to all of these episodes, just trying to get a better understanding of what you could expect when you get to your major, we're glad to have you. Or if you just want to get smart about your contract or 121 contract loss of medical in general, this is the place to do it. Now, my name is Timothy P. Pope. I'm a certified financial planner specializing in the planning needs of the professional pilots. And recording this, before we jump into the disability part, just a few days ago, the Air India crash happened. It's a Boeing 787, way too early to tell and to understand what happened. But I think that typically we don't expect 787s to go down. And I think that, that catches all of our attentions, makes us think about what we do every time we get into the flight deck and what it means, that just the risk. And I think 121 flying certainly, which is U.S., is certainly the safest stuff out there. But still, I think it makes everybody just pause and think. And certainly our thoughts are with all the passengers, everybody, the families that are impacted, right, of that Air India crash there. It probably also makes you think just about your own estate planning, to be honest with you. 2025 has been a challenging year. We started out with the DCA, and then there's been some others notable incidents as well. So I think, just all of us as pilots, it probably makes us think about our estate plan and making sure that everything is where it needs to be. So certainly thoughts and condolences to all of those that are impacted in the Air India crash. Now, let's talk about loss of medical. Loss of medical can happen at any time because really you're insuring against your income, against your health, right? Because you guys fly, you've got the first class medical, it's subject to sometimes the judgment of the FAA and sometimes just your health, right? You don't know what your genes could produce, but also sometimes you get into just little accidents, small things that can take you out of flying, sometimes for 6 months, sometimes for a couple of years. And so let's talk about what happens if you're flying at Delta and you lose your medical. The first thing we want to know is what is the definition of disability under the contract? And it's your inability to perform your privileges of your first class medical. So essentially that is an own occupation definition of disability, which is going to be your most favorable definition that you can have as it relates to disability policies. So we got a good definition there. The next thing we want to know is how will Delta calculate the disability benefit? And the way it works is, as your contract says, you will receive 50% of the final average earnings. And your final average earnings is defined as your highest consecutive 12 months in your last 36 months of active pay. So if you listen to the American Airlines disability, that is a little difference there. In American, it is your highest 12 out of your last 60 months. But here you've got a 36-month window here, and we're looking for your highest 12 consecutive months. So we're going to take that, we're going to average that out, and you're going to get 50% of that number for your loss of medical benefit here. Now, it is important to note that your benefits are taxable. So the Delta contract does not allow you to choose whether you want to pay tax on imputed income for this benefit, thereby making your loss of medical benefit non-taxable. And so if you go on disability claim at Delta, you can expect to pay taxes out of your disability payments. Now, what if you are on property for less than a year and you go out on disability? That happens. That happened to one of our clients. Well, the contract says that your final average earnings is going to be 83.3 hours per month, okay, at your FO pay. So that kind of covers whether you're there for less than a year or there for more than a year, what you can expect to receive. Get your 50%, but that's not it. There are some offsets. And again, this is different than American and some other carriers that will come up in future episodes, but there are some offsets to your income. So at Delta, if you're receiving disability pay, there is an earned income offset. And what this means is if you receive employment income outside of Delta in the first 36 months of being on disability benefits, if that employment income exceeds what your disability payment was calculated to be, then Delta is going to reduce your disability payment. Okay? So the way I'm reading that, though, is you can earn up to what your disability calculation is without receiving a reduction in benefits. And the other thing is if you get into a position where you lose your medical for more than 36 months, after that, then you can earn as much as you want and you'd still receive your 50% of your final average earnings there. So that's something to think about, is that there is the earned income offset from these benefits. The other offset is workers' comp. If you get hurt on the job and you're eligible to receive workers' comp, then your disability payment is going to be offset by the amount that you receive from workers' comp. When you read the contract, it specifically says it'll be reduced regardless of if you forfeited the benefits because you did not apply for them. So if you get hurt on the job and you're eligible for workers' comp, make sure you apply for the benefits, because the way it reads is that your disability payments would be offset even if you're not receiving them. So make sure you apply if that's appropriate for you. And then the other offset is state disability income benefits. So this applies to you guys that are based in California, New York, or Washington. If your state is going to give you disability income, then your benefit that you receive from Delta will also be reduced there. And then there's retirement benefits. I mean, if you're receiving income from the PBGC, so this kind of relates to if you were at a former airline that went bankrupt or merged and you have PBGC payments coming to you, then your disability payment would be reduced. So that's certainly for folks that are newer or you've only been at Delta in its current iteration, that's really not going to apply to you. Now, one thing, let's talk about the timing of the disability payments. So you go on sick leave, and then once you are sick leave of absence, your temporary disability payments are going to kick in, and those can last up to 26 weeks. And then if you've not returned to flying status after that 26-week period, your long-term disability payments are going to kick in as well. Now, Delta will continue to make contributions to your cash balance plan, and they're going to make contributions at 100% of your pre-disability income. Okay, so it's not going to be, right now it's 2025, you guys are getting 17% of your income going to your cash balance plan. It's not going to be 17% on 50% of your final average earnings. It's going to be 17% of what you were earning right before you went on disability there. So that's good, because Delta is going to continue to make those contributions to your cash balance plan. But also the pilot is able to make contributions directly to their 401k from their disability pay. So if you're in a financial situations where you don't need all of your disability pay, or maybe there's a portion of a period of time where you're receiving the contractual disability, the DPMA, and any of the other coverages that we'll talk about in today's podcast. If you're receiving all of those and you say, hey, well, maybe I'm going to continue to contribute to my 401k. And then when my disability income changes or circumstances, maybe I'll change that, right? So just know that you are still able to make contributions to your 401k directly from your disability payments if you so choose.
Hey, pilot, are you looking to save 20% on the sale or purchase of your next home? Let me tell you about a friend of the show, Beacon Relocation. With Beacon's exclusive real estate benefit, you can save thousands. My family has actually used their services when we needed to sell a property that was multiple states away. Beacon has over 1,500 experienced agents providing outstanding service and expertise as they guide you through every step of the buying or selling process. They'll even connect you with a national lender who offers competitive rates and discounted programs. As a Pilot's Portfolio listener, you are eligible to receive 20% of the real estate agent's commission towards your closing cost on the sale or purchase of your home. Visit beaconrelocation.com today. Select Pilot's Portfolio via the Apply Now drop-down menu to activate your benefits and make your next move your best move.
Buyer credit varies in some states. Contact us for details.
You heard me mention DPMA. What does that mean? DPMA is Delta Pilots Mutual Aid. Okay, it is separate and distinct from your contractual benefits. It's also separate and distinct from any ALPA benefits that you may have access to. So the way it works is your DPMA, once you reach your sick leave of absence and your sick bank is exhausted and any enhanced disability payments are exhausted, then the DPMA is going to kick in. And the benefit that you could expect to receive is going to be 25% of your final average earnings. So your final average earnings, your DPMA is going to use the same exact calculation as Delta is going to use, which is your highest 12 consecutive months out of the previous 36 months of active status. And then they're going to pay you 25% of that. Unlike the disability payments that you receive under the contract, the DPMA is not going to be taxable for you. So that 25% is going to be tax-free. And then how long does it last? Whereas the contractual disability payments will go out to FAA retirement age, your DPMA on a single event is good for 365 days, or you have a career total of 730 days. You can use the DPMA multiple times throughout your career. Just the total number of benefit days that are calculated there cannot exceed 730. The other thing with the DPMA is it does have a $35,000 survivor benefit. So let's say that you pass away, your survivor, your beneficiary could expect a $35,000 payout to them. When we think about how your benefits start to stack up, you're going to have your sick bank, and then any enhanced disability payments. And then once those are exhausted, you've got your DPMA. Typically, your DPMA probably is going to overlap with your temporary disability and maybe even your long-term disability as well. So you've got your 50% on temporary disability and long-term disability. And then on top of that, you've got your 25% from your DPMA. So that's going to be 75% gross. Of course, your temporary disability, your long-term disability are going to be taxable to you. So you're going to receive some number less than 50% after taxes are taken out. And then your DPMA is going to be after tax. So that 25% benefit, you'll receive 100% of that with no offsets there. Then we get into ALPA, disability insurance that you guys have access to. There's actually 3 different programs under this, and they're designed for 3 different purposes. So let's talk through them. Your base disability program, then you've got your plus disability, and then you've got your lump sum as well. The ALPA base disability program, so this is designed for you to receive monthly income. You can receive up to $6,000 per month. And you can purchase this in $600 increments. Now, every insurance has some kind of elimination period, which is a waiting period, right? So you pay your premiums, and then if you have an event, you go on claim, you've got to wait some amount of time before you can receive benefits. So the waiting period here for the ALPA disability insurance, the base program is 12 months. All right. So if we think about how your benefits run, you've got your sick bank, your extended or enhanced disability payments, and then your temporary disability, and then your DPMA. So that is probably going to get you through your first 12 months at or around, 75% of your pre-disability income. And then once you've waited that 12 months, if you've not returned to active status, then you got your ALPA insurance, which this is voluntary. So you guys got to seek this out. You got to pay for it. ALPA will provide it at a certain amount, in years 1 and years 2. But after that, you're on the hook to pay this. You got that 12 months and the ALPA kicks in. It's designed to last for 48 months. Okay. And that's the maximum. When you look at the policy, you'll see it starts to reduce at age 57. I don't know why it starts to reduce at age 57. It seems like it would start to reduce at age 61 to bring you up to 65. But that's not the case. It starts to reduce at 57, and actually it'll go out to 65 in 6 months there. So you get this up to $6,000 benefit there. The definition for this one is own occupation, and that's important because, as we already talked about, there's a lot of jobs that you can hold if you're not able to fly. And so if the reason that you lost your first class medical is not really debilitating to your ability to earn income, and you say, well, goodness, maybe I don't want to just sit around the house. So you can have, even within the first 36 months here, when this ALPA one kicks in, you can have what you're getting from the contract, so 50% of your final average earnings. You can get this ALPA disability up to $6,000 a month, and then you can go out and work. And you remember that offset only kicks in if your employment income exceeds what your calculated disability payment is going to be. So it is possible for you to string together up to 100% of your pre-flying income, depending on what kind of job you can grab, and some of these other benefits here. This base program also has a survivor benefit. So you wait the 12 months, you're eligible for benefits here. And let's say, unfortunately, you pass away. This policy will pay out 6 times whatever your monthly benefit was going to be. So let's say you max it out at $6,000. It would pay out $36,000 to whoever your beneficiary is going to be. It's also going to have a waiver of premium. So you go on disability, you're waiting for your 12 months to pass by. As long as you've been continuously disabled for 90 days, you can qualify to have your premiums waived. So let's talk about this. So if in the past you guys have heard me talk about some insurances get more expensive the older you get, this is one of those. Okay. So, I just looked at a 45-year-old. Let's say they maxed out, they needed $6,000 a month for this ALPA insurance. That costs them about $60 a month. Actually, $59.47, but $60 a month. And then when they turn 46, that costs them about $65 a month. Okay. And it would go so on and so forth. So really take a look at it, buy what you need, figure out what your financial circumstance is, what fits in your plan, and then don't be overinsured, don't be underinsured, right? So that is the base plan. Let's go to the plus plan because this is completely different than the base. The ALPA monthly disability insurance plus, here are the key differences. You've got to do base in order to qualify for plus, okay? And here's why. Because the coverage on plus is 50% of what you would have received in the base plan. And the maximum benefit now is $3,000 instead of $6,000. So when you think about it, there is a waiting period of 5 years in order for the plus to kick in. So this really comes into play if you're seriously injured kind of thing. It looks like you might not be returning to the flight deck. So your DPMA, your ALPA insurance base plan is going to get you through the first 5 years. And of course, you've got your temporary disability and your long-term disability working in the background. Let's say you've waited 5 years, you still haven't returned back to flying. Well, if you have this plus plan, it'll kick in and it'll be 50% of your base benefit that you were receiving. So instead of your base just going away after the 48 months, it'll reduce down to 50% with the plus plan. And the base plan was only good for 48 months. The plus plan, the benefit duration there is it'll actually take you out to age 65. Okay, it'll take you out to FAA retirement age. But here's the thing. Definition of disability on this one is any gainful occupation. Okay, so it's not just your own occupation. It's not, hey, I can't exercise the privileges of my first class medical. It is any gainful occupation. And so the way they define that is they say, hey, if you're unable to earn more than 60% of your pre-disability earnings at any gainful occupation for which you are reasonably qualified, then you'll qualify for this benefit and it'll pay out. So again, this comes in if you're seriously injured and it looks like you may not be returning to the flight deck. I think the data will show. I'd love to have like somebody from R&I, so retirement and insurance, on the podcast to talk about data. Because I think the data is, just because the work that you guys do is so dependent on your first class medical, the data is there that says like probability is high that pilots will go out on disability, but I don't know what the probability is that you go out and stay out, right? And you never return to flying, even if you're out for a while. I'd love to hear the data on that, and that would influence and help us make decisions on, hey, should we sign up for Plus Plan or not? Now, the Plus Plan, just like the base plan, also has a survivor benefit. So it's going to be 6 times your monthly benefit if you're entitled to receive it. So, hey, here we can max out at $3,000 a month. And this one, so let's say you're receiving a benefit and unfortunately you pass away, your beneficiary would receive 6 times of whatever you were receiving per month. So 3,000 times 6, $18,000. We have the same waiver of premium here, like we talked about on the Plus Plan. So 90 continuous days, you can apply to have your premium waived, and you will not have to pay the premium for as long as you're disabled. Whenever you return to active flight status, then you would have to pay it. But again, this one, because of the 5-year waiting period, it may be a challenge, right? Be thinking about returning to flying after that. I suppose, I'm not going to say it can't happen, but just challenging. All right, let's talk about the premiums. How much does this kind of thing cost? So I looked at the rates for a 45-year-old that needed to max this out at $3,000 a month of benefit. It would be $146 a month. You can see that that is different than our $60 a month. And the reason is the benefit duration, right? So the insurance company has priced this to say, hey, we might have to take you out to age 65, versus in the base plan, they're pricing it to say, hey, we'd only have to pay for up to 48 months. Right? So you can see the difference in premium there. And then also in the same case, this will get increasingly more expensive as you age. So, I think for those that are interested, like, hey, I wonder what my portfolio would need to be to generate my own $3,000 a month in perpetuity. I think a $900,000 portfolio at 4% could reasonably generate $3,000 a month. There we'd have to factor in some taxes, versus this one would be tax-free. So maybe a little bit more than $900,000. But so, you can think about, hey, do I need it? Could I self-insure? Or maybe I do need this. Let's talk about the last option that we have with ALPA. It's the lump sum insurance benefit. And this one's designed to do exactly what the name said, is provide a lump sum. So up to $150,000, you could pay for it in $25,000 increments. You go on disability, you've got to wait for 12 months. And then if you're still on not returned to active flight status, then this will pay out, up to $150,000. Now here's the definition, its own occupation. We like that. It's fairly narrow. Hey, I can't exercise the privileges of my first class medical. I've been out of the flight deck for 12 months. Boom. It's going to pay me out, whatever, up to $150,000, whatever I choose. The premiums here, so a 45-year-old who maxes this out, their monthly payment is going to be $41.75, call it $42 a month. So you could think about use cases. Hey, maybe you just bought a big mortgage or bought a house with a high mortgage on it, and you're like, man, I really need to stay flying. And if something happens to me, I'd love to have some additional cash to pay down the mortgage, right? So that and other use cases, maybe you're thinking about kids' college, maybe you got behind on the 8 ball, you feel, and maybe the 529s are a little lighter than you'd like. And you're like, well, if I went out on disability while they're going to school and I want to pay for it, I'd want to be able to have options. You can think about the lump sum disability. And these things are, you can turn them on, you can turn them off. And so they're flexible in that way. So, I wanted to cover all of this so we can understand, hey, I'm flying at Delta. What happens if I lose my medical? You've got your sick bank. You've got any extended disability payments. You've got DPMA, you have temporary disability, you've got long-term disability, and then you have all these options through ALPA. Now, here's what I'm not saying. Like, I'm not saying to go out and buy all of the coverage and max everything out. What I am saying is understand your specific financial needs and how these disability insurances can fit with your financial plan, and then buy that. And then from there, as your circumstances change, then you want to tweak the coverages to your disability insurance as well. So that is what happens if you lose your medical at Delta. Guys, stay healthy out there, make great decisions. Thanks for joining this episode of Pilot's Portfolio. Let me know what questions you guys have. Stay tuned. We have Southwest and United coming up next.
Thank you for joining this episode of Pilot's Portfolio. If you found this information helpful, spread the word and share it with a pilot buddy. Or if you have questions and there's something that you would like to hear discussed on the show, send us an email. You can find the address in the show notes. For those of you who are ready to learn how we help professional pilots with their financial planning needs, schedule an appointment. Until next time, keep the shiny side up, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Pilot's Portfolio is hosted by Timothy P. Pope. Timothy P. Pope is principal owner of 360 Aviation Advisors. 360 Aviation Advisors is a registered investment advisory firm regulated by the state of North Carolina in accordance and compliance to the securities laws and regulations. 360 Aviation Advisors does not render or offer to render personalized investment or tax advice through Pilot's Portfolio. The information provided is for informational purposes only and may not be suitable for all investors and does not constitute financial, tax, investment, or legal advice. All investments involve a degree of risk, including the risk of loss.